great crowd for 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. That's all I got to say. First of all, we were sitting in the back room a minute ago. Jim mentioned this, but Jim, I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Well," said, "we lost the ball game on Saturday." I said, "Jim, we're in Knoxville, Tennessee. You're probably the only we in this room, okay? Find another we." He's not holding his hand up and tells you anything, okay? Right now, Jim, you're the only we, buddy. Okay, you're on your own on this.
I know it's your soul.
You probably shamed him into leaving. Who knows? You know? But obviously, it is good to be here in Knoxville. We're going to Bristol, Tennessee, and came down and I've been enjoying doing this. We've been traveling the state working on this. I think this is our 4th stop. We've been in the Tri-City. We've been in Clarksville, Memphis. We still have Chattanooga and Nashville to go. Because I do want to spread the word about this. But let me take just a second or two to say a word or two about some people in the room. Good to have Bob Griffin here with the Congressman's office. I swear, is there just one of you? Tell me the honest truth. But wherever I go, it seems like you're there, okay? So it's good to be here, Bob. Joe DePietro is right there. We talked on the way in this morning. Good to be here. We try to work hard to help out the University of Tennessee, that system. We know how important that is, not only for us as Tennessee as an image, but when we talk about job creation, is what I'm talking about this morning. And nothing drives that like higher education. And of course, our flagship here in Nashville, in Knoxville, it is good to be here with us, the home of that. So let me say just a word or two about Randy McNally too. But Randy's here this morning. And he represents part of, lives over in Oak Ridge, but represents part of Knox County. I hope y'all know how fortunate you are to have Randy representing you all. You know, as one of maybe the most important job that I have, it is the most important job I have as Lieutenant Governor and Speaker of the Senate, is the first thing I do when we come into session every other year. When I'm sworn in, I'm in my 3rd term now as Lieutenant Governor. The most important thing I do is appoint committees. If I do that correctly on day 1, I can just step back and kind of watch things operate from that point forward. And by far, the most powerful committee, of course, is the Finance, Ways, and Means Committee. And the most important person there, obviously, is the chairman of that committee. I can pick any of the 33 senators to be chairman of that committee. There's no doubt that I picked the right one who's doing a fantastic job in Randy. It has to be the toughest job, especially in times like this. When money's rolling in and we're collecting our sales taxes, it's not all that hard. But right now, when each year last year we cut $1.2 billion out of our state budget with relatively little fanfare. And Randy was the one that led the way on that. He has to sit in his office with person after person coming in saying, no, 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 no. That's your pat answer is no. How many ways you can simply say no? But Randy's figured out how to do it. But do it compassionately. So I want to thank you, Randy, for all you're doing. I know Ryan's here somewhere, representing Haynes right here. Talk about a rising star in Nashville. Not only is he chairman of the delegation here in Knox County, his colleagues thought enough to elect him that, but also just this week or last week or so, he's been elevated to vice chair of State and Local Government Committee and doing a fantastic job. Hit the ground running. I was impressed with him from day 1 when we first met. So Ryan, good to be here with you too. It really is. Jim Brown and I have been traveling the state now together on this. I've been an FIB member since before I was in the legislature. I'm a small businessman myself. I own and operate a little auction company in Northeast Tennessee. It used to be a big auction company. Now it's a little auction company in Northeast Tennessee. My one piece of advice for you is don't get in the real estate business right now. I'm just telling you that right now. It's kind of tough times. Maybe a little better than it was a year ago, but it's pretty tough. And so I've always wanted to be part of somebody that advocates for me in Nashville, advocates for me in Washington, D.C., and there is no doubt that the voice, period, the voice for small business in Nashville and in Washington, D.C. is good FIB. They'll be Hutton, when they talk, people listen. And it's not uncommon at all. Have a bill in the state legislature, somebody says, what does NFIB think about this? Because they are the grassroots, and I represent the Eastman Chemicals of the world, I represent some big companies, and they kind of fend for themselves. But as small business people have 1 or 2 employees, we need to band together and make sure we're doing the right thing, and Jim does that. Obviously, somebody else just walked in the room has been a state senator now for about, not quite 12 hours. She's doing a fantastic job in her 12 shifts. And I talked about appointing committees, how important that is. Becky and I are going to actually talk about this, what she wants to be on after this, and it's kind of a, when you squeeze here, something pops up over there. It's one of these things that everybody in the legislature, except for two people, I think Randy and maybe the chair of the judiciary, by far the two busiest committees, are on 3 committees. And so when I move somebody here, something goes over here, so we're going to figure out the best place for her to make sure she can make an impact. So Becky, good to be here. Sorry I wasn't here swearing in. If you have a problem with that, yesterday's my birthday. Call my family and tell them why I couldn't be there. But that's the reason I couldn't be here yesterday. It was good. Okay. I tell you, this is something that's just eaten at me for a long time is the red tape issue. Let me back up a little bit and tell you why. My goal in working with Governor Haslam, it's so refreshing for me to be able, as Lieutenant Governor, not only be able to walk down the hall and have a friend in the Speaker of the House's office with Beth Harwell doing a great job, be able to walk up the first floor of the state capitol and have a great friend in Bill Haslam. I mean, most of you all know, if you didn't, you must have lived under a rock, but most of you know that we ran against each other for 17 months. And I've heard the governor say that rarely does anybody run against somebody for 17 months and actually become better friends at the end of the campaign than you were at the beginning of the campaign. That's honestly the truth with Bill Haslam. Jim said about me that what you see is what you get. Let me assure you, Bill Haslam, what you see is what you get too. He's just a great guy. We're working very well together. That's one reason I've started this red tape, but I have a partner in the governor's office. So we have 2 overriding issues that we want to make our priorities, our goals in the legislature. Number 1 is to make Tennessee the #1 state in the nation to own and operate a business, period. If we can do that, that solves about every problem we have. It really does. But the second thing we want to do too is make sure that we have a quality teacher in every classroom in K through 12. We're working hard on that too, and we had some unbelievable reforms last year on the tenure reform, the collective bargaining reform, right on down a long list. And we've done a lot on the business side. Last year we passed probably one of the most comprehensive tort reform bills in the United States. We modeled after Texas, what they've done. We've seen what they've done in job growth. Mississippi had a good bill. We modeled after them. And that was a huge step in the right direction, something we've been trying to pass for years in the legislature. And now we have the right makeup, and literally the right to make up in the House and the Senate, to where we can actually pass a bill like this. And so it was a good piece of legislation. And about the 1st of September, I had the opportunity to go to New York City with the governor, Commissioner and F&A, and let me say on that also, the governor's put together one fantastic cabinet. I don't know how many of y'all have met the new commissioner. They're really, really good people, are just as dedicated as I am to cutting this red tape. With Commissioner of F&A and Mark Emke's former CEO, over 50,000 people, 50,000 employees of Bridgestone America. You got Bill Haggerty, it's ECD, that Economic Community Development. That I'm going to tell you, the one thing that the governor called me when he said, I'm going to appoint Bill Haggerty as Commissioner of ECD, and my question was, how did you get him? I mean, he is unbelievably good. And I go right down a long list with Kevin Huffman, with education. And so I got a chance to go up to New York with the constitutional officers and the governor and sit across the table from the bond rating agencies in New York City. We had a meeting one afternoon and 2 the next day, 3 different bond rating agencies, Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's. And so got to make our pitch for the state of Tennessee. And I wish you all could have been with me, because you ought to stick your chest out and say, thank goodness we live in Tennessee. We could sit across from those bond rating agencies and tell them that we cut $1.2 billion out of our budget, I said last year, and did it with relatively little fanfare, and the budget passed unanimously in the House and Senate. That doesn't happen in Washington, D.C. the last time I looked. Okay, so it passed unanimously on both houses. We owe less money. The state of Tennessee owes less money than any state in the union. And the good thing about it, when we borrow money, we actually pay it back. Isn't that unusual in government days? We have a pension fund that's fully funded. We got a highway system we don't owe a dime on. Most states borrow money for their highway. We go on and on. So what's lacking? What's lacking? And I do believe it's the red tape issue. And what we can do to streamline government, streamline permitting process. But I'm a small businessman, and I understand this, if I'm applying for a license, or if I'm applying for a permit from from Environment Conservation or any other department for that matter, every day that permit lays on somebody's desk is a day that a job's not created, period. And we have state employees, we have some great state employees, but some people, they get paid the same if that stays on the left side of their desk and doesn't get acted on, or gets slid across the right side of the desk, and it gets done. And Randy and Ryan can tell you, and Becky's going to find this out, probably the majority of our constituent calls are for constituents that have a permit, that have a license, and then they say, you know, I mailed this in 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a word yet. And we'll call the department, or have somebody on my staff call the department, and the next day they have their license or have their permit. They say, yeah, we've been meaning to send that out. Well, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be. How we cut through this? I'll give you a couple examples. It's just the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Last fall, about this time, a little bit, maybe 2 weeks ago, this time last year, a constituent from Mountain City called me. He said, Ron, I'm trying to open up a little business here. I'm going to employ about 300 people seasonally for about the next 2 months in Mountain City, Tennessee. We'll close down tobacco warehouse, and we're going to be making Christmas wreaths and sending them to all over the world. But we have a huge Christmas tree business in Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, and Western North Carolina. And we're going to be making these Christmas wreaths. But this tobacco warehouse, they literally have to put a tile in. I mean, they did a 12-inch tile across a ditch. And it is a ditch. There's no water running in. I can't imagine water running through this ditch. And they're waiting on their permit. So I said, okay, see if I can fix this. This is about October the 20th, something like that. So I called the Department of Environment Conservation. They said, yeah, we saw that. We saw that when it came in. We're going to start looking at that. I said, what do you mean start looking at it? I said, we need this done now. Well, okay, we'll expedite it and see if we can get it out quickly. I said, how quick is quickly? They said, well, I think we can have this out in 90 days. You see a little problem with October 20th? I think last time I loved Christmas and never moved December 25th, and that's a problem. I said, this is not going to work. Sorry, that's the best we can do. And literally, we had a tractor and trailer parked on a 4-lane road, and they had to carry the stuff off the tractor and trailer into the building, carry it back out because they couldn't drive across that little ditch. I said, that's crazy. And then, I have another friend of mine that was trying to permit a landfill in Sullivan County. And don't get me wrong, landfills aren't easy to permit. And they shouldn't be easy to permit. But at the same time, if you go into any business operation, if you go into making any kind of business decision I have to make every day, you want to know what's the cost-benefit analysis, is this worth doing or not worth doing. And so you say, look, what is this going to cost me to get this permit? Just tell me. And I'll decide on the front end if this is something I want to do or not. So the Department of Environment Conservation said, you'll do A, B, and C, you get the permit. That's all I got to do. Yes, you do A, B, and C, we'll promise you do the core drilling, do the sampling, do the stuff like that, you'll get your permit. Okay, great. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try this. He does A, B, and C. Gets it done, turns it in, waits for a year. I'm not exaggerating. A year. This is a 5-year process, folks. And finally, the governor has them come in. We've got this taken care of. They said, we did A, B, and C. Okay, I've done it. Sure enough, you did. But we need D, E, and F. Now, wait a minute. You told me A, B, and C, and I'll be done. Well, D, E, and F, you'll get it. So you promised me if we do D, E, and F, we're done. Yes, okay? I'll make that business decision. I'm going to keep moving forward. You do D, E, and F, turn it in, wait another year, and they say, you finally get the back. They say, well, we need G and H. Wait a minute. So now you're about $1 million, literally, there's $1.2 million in the process. He couldn't back up. They knew he couldn't back up. He had to keep going. And that's a problem. Just tell people on the front end what they got to do. So we came up with an idea of starting this website and allowing small business people across the state to be able to tell us what your problems are so we can help solve them. And Jim mentioned something about that. One of the biggest problems we have is that when people, we like to post things on our website to prove that we're making progress, most people do not want their name on any kind of website. When they get done, they still have to deal with the Department of Environment Conservation. They still have to deal with the Department of Revenue. They still have to deal with these departments. They don't want their name out there. Just fix it for me and we'll go on. So we started this website. And I came up with this on my own. Down at the bottom, you'll see it down there. Red tape. The red tape stands for ridiculous employee decisions that affect people every day. That is red tape. It is. And I was driving home one day, I get a lot of driving time from Knoxville to Bristol, that came to me. So what we're trying to do, as we're traveling around the state, is first we have to publicize this. If people don't know it exists, you can't use it. That's what we're doing. Make sure the media is here this morning, make sure we get this out. More importantly, we want those examples where we can help you. Number one, we'll solve your problem. I think we can do it, cut through the red tape. And number two, and probably more importantly, is see if there's something systemic, some problem that happens over and over that we can correct this problem so nobody has to do it again. I learned something today. I didn't know this till Jim said just a minute ago. We have 110 licensed professionals, more than most any other state in the union. That's a problem that I didn't know about till this morning. So so things like that we can work on. How can we combine some of these things? How can we make this work more streamlined? How can we make this move forward? So that's what we're doing today. And some of the overriding issues that we've heard, not only the ones where somebody's trying to get a permit, but what's the systemic problems? There are a couple of things we're learning. One of them is about workers' compensation insurance and some of the problems that we're having with it. And I'll be right up front with you. I'm a real estate auctioneer here from Bluntville. I don't have all the answers, but I found out something a long time in politics. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know who knows it. And I'm going to figure out who knows this stuff, working with the governor to make sure that we can work on our workers' compensation problem that we have here in Tennessee. We tried to streamline it about 4 or 5 years ago, but obviously we need to take the next step. The second thing that I hear about over and over, and I've got a lot of heat over this, I guess that's what you call it, I don't care, across the state is about our unemployment compensation. And how I said, I mean this, I'll defend it every day, that unemployment compensation is a benefit, not a lifestyle. And we've had unemployment, there are times now, right now, you can draw unemployment for 2 years, And there's not a week goes by, and I'm not exaggerating, not a week goes by that I don't have an employer call me and say, Ron, I need 5 positions, I need these filled. I call people and they'll say, well, wait till my benefits run out in 5 or 6 weeks. Wait till my benefits run out in 10 weeks. The press acts like that doesn't happen, and I'm making this up. Folks, it happens. So what can we do to streamline that process? Number one, make sure people are actually looking for jobs, and they're not just waiting for the benefits to run out. When I got started in business in 1981, if you remember, 1981 is about like today, and not quite this bad, but it wasn't good. Somebody forgot to tell me, because I was 25 years old and naive, that 1981 was not a good time to start a business. Somebody forgot to tell me that. But we made it work. Sandy and I made it work literally, you've heard me say, with a pickup truck and a prayer. We made it work. But back then, if somebody had their unemployment benefits, they had to literally go around employers and say, here's what they do. I've been through so many times I've been doing this. Are you hiring? No, I'm not hiring. Well, good. Will you sign this for me so I can take it back and prove they'll look for a job? If you said you were hiring, they'd walk out the door. But at least they had to make a physical effort to prove that they're trying to get a job. There are other ways we can do this too. So we are getting some benefits out of this. I'm excited about being able to go back in Knoxville in about 6 weeks. That's hard to believe. In about 6 weeks we'll be there. So I want to thank you all for taking your time of being here this morning. And I would love to open this up. If you have any suggestions, whether it be generalities or individual cases that we may be able to help you with, I'd love to hear those. And most important thing you can do is help us to publicize this so that people can log on and help us out so we can solve our problems. The press, I've noticed this, that they actually don't think there's a problem with red tape. And so I need examples. So we know they're out there. We need to make sure that happens. Maybe they say, yeah, so that's what those old Republicans talk about red tape. There's not really anything. But with folks, we know there is, so help us out. So I'll open it up. Anything you all have that we may be able to help you with this morning, or any comments? We just take comments. Okay, that's easy. Yes.
Lieutenant Governor, will you speak to some of those solutions around the unemployment system?
You know, as soon as I got up here, I thought about that. We have about 6 of them we're working with. But I'm going to be like the guy, that I'm going to let my chauffeur in the back of the room answer this question. You remember, I heard that joke a long time ago. But anyway, Jordan, there are 2 or 3 things we were working on there. I meant to write those down before I got up here. There are 3 things. First, number 1, number 2. I can't remember the third one. But anyway, I don't want to get that position, okay? Okay. Jordan?
We're trying to streamline the initial determination process as well as the appeal process. We're looking at how the employers in the department interact with the former employees and define their initial determination process, because the governor is very aware of this, that the people that apply for benefits, vast majority of them are getting approved to begin with. We found that out working with the Department of Labor. In fact, to the point that when the employer decides to appeal the employee getting the benefits, 64% of the employees lose their benefits because the employer wins on the appeal. So we're trying to make sure that that process is fair for both people, and we're also trying to look at making sure that they are looking for work by looking to make them certified and do some things online as well.
I'm on that, that's it. You know, okay, somebody's tardy, somebody never shows up for work, they're blatant, they fail a drug test, whatever, and so you let them go. They go down to the office, they apply for unemployment, you've written out everything you possibly do, they still get their unemployment almost every time. Now you all, as an employer, have to take time out of your busy schedule to go to some kind of appeals process to make sure this works. Well, there has to be a better way, whether it's informing the first-time people on the front lines or whatever this might be, to make sure that if they show up, call the employer, find out why they were dismissed, and we're going to find out whether they should get those unemployment benefits. They're not supposed to get unemployment benefits if they were fired, period. But I'm convinced that there are people that get fired so they get all unemployment benefits, you know? And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Jim, I think you had something you want to talk about.
Well, Jordan, by the way, has done a tremendous amount of work on this issue. He knows the unemployment system. He's done a great job of being prepared for this session. But he talked about, and the Lieutenant Governor talked about notification and recertification. That's one thing that's being looked at seriously. The misconduct definition that we adopted 2 years ago in Tennessee is not very good. It's watered down. It's from a 1986 Court of Appeals case. And Florida adopted a misconduct definition that we like, our Labor Advisory Council likes. And you all know that NFIB ballots are members. The ballot just went out a week and a half ago. Please, it's in your email, it's in your mail, it's on your fax. Please return that, because if we get your direction, then we will look for a stronger misconduct definition. We hear it over and over again. Someone stole from me, or they went AWOL for 5 days, and I called them. I'm trying to get them back to work. And in some cases, like in Chattanooga, we've had almost no complaints from members on unemployment, which surprises us. Workers' comp is huge down there, but unemployment, no. But if you have Memphis, Nashville, Murfreesboro, they're wearing us out. So there's a lot of inconsistency in the system, and we want consistency, and unfortunately we have to look for a definition on misconduct. And the last thing is duration of benefits. One thing that Florida's done that we're looking at, it's also on the ballot, is maybe dropping it from 26 weeks to 23 weeks, what Florida did. If the unemployment rate is really high, that you go a fair amount of time. But if the unemployment rate is really low, which hopefully will be again sometime soon, 5%, you drop it down to maybe 12 weeks, and you kind of graduate it to where it's addresses the lifestyle benefit question you're talking about.
Of course, you apply for 26 weeks 4 times. There's this, and so, like I told you a minute ago, I don't have to know everything, I just have to know the nose. I'm a big picture kind of guy, and believe me, assure you that we're going to get this legislation written. We're working on it right now, arguing with legal services. And so if y'all have any ideas to help us, be sure to give one of us and let us know. Another question over here, please. Maybe not. Yes.
I was just going to talk about my experience as being a physician, and it's federal rules, but it's done through TennCare as well, and my ability to treat patients. But so much of being able to bill without fraud to the government for the services is you have to fill out so many check boxes to make sure you've done everything and done it properly. The government doesn't really care whether we're giving good care to patients or not. What they care about is whether we've checked the appropriate boxes so that we can charge the appropriate amount. And a lot of my time is spent figuring out to make sure, did I check all the boxes properly? Because if I didn't, that's fraud, and there's a potential big stick there. And I have to hire more staff to help me make sure that those boxes are filled out correctly. And it's a waste of time, and it makes it all the much more difficult to treat TennCare patients. Forget the reimbursement issue, but if I do something wrong in terms of checking boxes, I'm in a lot of trouble, and that's just not worth the hassle sometimes.
First of all, thank you for bringing up 10 care in particular. I don't see why any doctor, let's be honest about it, takes 10 care period. So thank you for doing it. You're paid, your payment is less than it costs you to give you the service. And when I take auctions, I don't take auctions I lose money on, okay? So thank you for doing that. And just the red tape in particular, I guess the only good part that came out of that, you're having to hire people to fill out the paperwork. But that's a sign I we don't want, but that's the only good thing that comes out of that. So if there's any way, seriously, please help us. If there's some way you can say, look, here's 3 sheets of paper. There's no reason this can be combined into 1 sheet of paper and cut out half of these redundant questions. I want to know that. I'm serious about this. It's not something you're just going to bring to me and say, well, that's nice. So they don't. We're working on this. Well, I have to have specific examples of what these are. But you know what I'm saying? I believe you. But there has to be 3 sheets of paper that can be combined into 1 and do away with about half the redundant questions. So be sure to contact Jordan in my office or contact Jim, and we'll get to work on this. We're going, and I want to tell you, the governor is fired up on this as I am. And this couldn't be happening at a better time, that we've got new commissioners that aren't caught up in the system. You know how things work after a while, and after you work with these, you change the top layer in any department that it might be. You change the commissioner and maybe 2 assistant commissioners, but the bureaucrats stay. Randy's been there longer than I have, and it doesn't take long for those bureaucrats to tell them we can't do this and here's why. Well, right now we have commissioners that aren't listening to this, we can't do this. They say, why can't we do this? They ask the question back. But it seems like after a commissioner's been in there for 3 or 4 years, suddenly they're in, well, we can't do that. Why? Because my people tell me we can't. Well, that's not a good reason. So help us out of this. Yes, sir.
Is it a function of people or mindset that's the problem?
It is a mindset. There's no, and how do we change that? And state employees in particular. I mean, I'm not being critical of state employees. Remember, there are great ones across the state, but it is a mindset. It's a culture that's going to have to be changed to remind people that they work for us, not the other way around. We pay their salaries.
Is it too many people?
Well, in the state of Tennessee, compared to most other states, we don't have too many. There may be certain departments where there are too many people. There are some departments where I'm not sure we have enough people. And just last week, the Commissioner of Safety came up to Sullivan County because Sullivan County had one of the longest wait times for a driver's license than any county in the state. About 2 hours, on average, 2 hours. And so I'm not sure whether that's a people problem or a systems problem. We're looking at changing that. But there are departments where we have cut back and it is somewhat of a people problem. But overall, I think it's just a culture that whether, I mean, I get up every morning, as everybody in this room does, and know if I don't work, I don't get paid, okay? If I don't return those phone calls laid on my desk, I'm not going to list that auction, therefore I don't get a commission. But in the way state government works, it is the culture, and they get caught up in it. They're going to get their paycheck on Friday no matter what. So we're trying to look at a way to have bonuses. We're looking at civil service right now, because that's another problem we have in state government, that if you decide you have a bad employee, you let this one go. Well, they've been there the longest, they have the right to bump this one, who has the right to bump this one, who has the right to bump this one. So you lay off the one that's been here for 25 years and kind of got lazy on us, and the one that's been there for 3 years, that's working their tail off, is the one that gets dismissed. There's something wrong with that. So it is the answer, that's a long answer, but yes, it's a culture, systemic problem that we're going to address that will take time. You're not going to change it overnight. Yes, right here, another one.
Yeah, I had a question too, or a comment. I'm in the design and construction business, and of course we deal with the State Fire Marshal's Office and TDEC on just about every project. And it's come to the point now where if we have a project and an owner's doing a job on more than an acre of property, half an acre of property, we have to get a stormwater prevention plan from TDEC. And we're having to tell our clients that it's a minimum of 30 days before they can do anything. So a lot of times we already have building permits and things in hand, and we're just waiting on that document before an owner can turn a piece of dirt. And so we appreciate your efforts trying to cut down some of that, because I feel like, especially when they changed that regulation a few years ago from 5 acres to an acre, everybody's got to have one of those things, and a lot of times it's really not even necessary. So it does slow down projects quite frequently. And like you said, that's 30 days that we can have a contractor and their crews out, working on a construction project.
I'd like to go back to the 5 acres.
I would too.
There's no reason we can go back to the 5 acres. The world didn't come to an end, or we didn't save anything when we went from 5 acres to 1 acre, other than added a lot of bureaucratic Red tape. Here's the deal, if I get out here and have an auction, and I've got a 100-acre farm, and we push out the fence rows and clean out a few trees, I probably got an acre. You know what I mean? So I'll have to check with TDEC every time, get a permit, and they'll say, we'll get back to you in 30 days, and then in 30 days you have the permit, and my auction's scheduled 3 weeks from now. That's kind of hard to do. And I'll admit, I avoid the planning commission like the plague. Yeah, I do. If I sell any farm in 5-acre tracts or bigger, I don't have to go to the planning commission. If I sell anything smaller than 5 acres, I go to the planning commission. You're going to be shocked how many of my farms get up 5-acre tracts or bigger, simply because I have to schedule an auction 3 months out if I have to go to the planning commission. There's no reason for that. I think I can.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes.
We've heard from an expert that our definition of water in Tennessee is just too restrictive, and that we ought to go back to the federal definition, or are you dealing with that? Do you know about that?
I haven't dealt with that as much, but you might ask some of the civil engineers their opinion on that.
I deal with that. Anytime you look at any property that has a ditch, maybe there's a little bit of water, maybe there's no water in it, we call TDEC to say, is this a water in the state? And I'm not an expert on which is what, but it's up to them, whether they call it a water in the state or it's just a conveyance.
It's actually, when I got started in real estate business, and I'm a licensed surveyor too. And so back in 1981, come on up if you want to, I can tell, my mind, I'm not supposed to be up at 9, but when I got started in the surveying business back in 1981, you had what we call blue line streams. And everybody in here that's had any deals that know what you're talking about. You pull out a USGS map, you look on that map, if there's really a blue line stream, then we know we're going to do remediation. If I'm doing a subdivision plat, if I'm doing anything like that. Now, if there's a farm pond that they pushed out 15 years ago, there's 2 cattails growing in it, and there's no water been in it for years, suddenly it's water of the state. And the second thing you'll run into, you hope you get the right person from TDEC coming out there. You can have this person say, no, you're fine, keep going. You have the other person, well, here's what we're going to do. And so getting some consistency, and I work with Bob Martin, the new commission. Believe me, I have worn him out on this issue. As a matter of fact, I told him the ABC, DEFGH story before he came into office. We'd been in office about a month. I was driving down the road. I was in Abilene, Virginia, on Interstate 81 coming back from Mountain City. And I got a call from the guy, Gary Rader, trying to permit landfill. I said, here we go again. They're asking for I and J now. And I called the commissioner. I said, Commissioner, this is the one I told you about right here. It's ridiculous. He's done everything he's supposed to do. And it's like on a Tuesday, by Friday he had a permit. And I'm not saying he rushed it through. He'd done everything he'd been asked. So I think we have a commissioner now that's willing to help us define waters of the state. And I know that's somewhat subjective, but there ought to be some way you can put on a piece of paper or train your employees to where there's some consistency. One more question.
Well, on the TDEC thing.
Yeah.
And I'm in the home furnishings business, so we know realtors and contractors
Right.
and business is a lot tougher for us right now, but because houses aren't selling.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking to a developer about building affordable housing for rental, and he mentioned this TDEC. Actually, it was sand filtration killed a particular affordable housing development recently. Actually, it's been a couple of years, and he indicated that as they look around the state that there is inconsistency between, say, the Johnson City office and the Knoxville or Chattanooga office. And I'm glad to hear that there's a commissioner that will deal with it, but the consistency seems to be a big issue. To let sand filtration issue kill an affordable housing development is brutal.
Well, we have a commissioner definitely that's looking at it. He actually used to be, worked for Water Lansing, I think is where he came from. And he was on the permitting, is that right, Jim? He was on the permitting side, helping you all get your permits, so he knew what we were going through. And like I said, I warned him out on this issue. I'm not going to let him back out because I know what's going to happen, as I mentioned a minute ago, and I'll end with this, is those bureaucrats get in there and say, well, sorry. They always blame it on the feds. That's the first thing to do. That's a federal requirement. Sorry, Bob, but they do. Okay, but what I always like to ask is, well, great, show me that federal requirement. What? Show me that federal requirement. If you're blaming on the feds, show me that. Well, I don't know if I put my hands on it. Yeah, right. That means it doesn't exist. Let's use that for an excuse. So again, thank you all. Yes.
Thanksgiving, everyone, on the short. Rising young leader in the legislative closet, get involved in a lot of key issues where but we're better than the feds, obviously. I did learn last week in talking to some leaders that we have
somebody's tardy, somebody never shows up for work, they're blatant, they fail a drug test.